Good evening. We have reached 6 p.m. We will start the meeting of the mayor and council for November the 10th, 2020. Tonight we have two very special guests. We're going to have Pastor Michael Adams, who will lead us in the invocation. I'll tell you a little bit about him, and then we have Jim Benedict, who is a veteran and who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. And when he comes up, I will ask that if there are any other veterans in the room, if they could come up and join him at the podium to assist in leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So first, let me tell you a little bit about Pastor Michael Adams. Michael Adams is one of the senior pastors of Lifegate Church. He's been a part of Lifegate Church since it was started in Villa Rica in 2004. He has a passion for the local church and believes it is the vehicle Jesus has chosen to make his name famous all over the world. His heart is for every Lifegate member to experience the life Jesus has for them. Pastor Adams is a graduate of Globe School Ministry and Lee University. Michael and his wife Amy have two beautiful children, and they live in Villa Rica. Thank you, Pastor, for being here tonight. If you'll come up to the podium. And then let me introduce Jim before we get the invocation. Jim Benedict was born in Iowa on a farm. He's right over there. He joined the Army in June of 1956. I don't know what I was doing in 1956. He served 23 and a half years on active duty and then went to work as a civilian with the Army for 22 and a half more years. Retired and moved to Villa Rica in 2004 and worked as a security officer at Six Flags and Tanner Hospital. Chief Mansour asked him to come and work for the PD in 2008, and he has been working for the city for the past 12 years. So if everyone would please rise, I'll ask the pastor to come forward. Lead us in the invocation.
All right, let's pray. Father, we honor your presence in this place today. We thank you. Lord, we just recognize we need your help in ruling and in stewarding what you've given us. Lord, thank you for a great city that we get to call home. Lord, thank you that despite of its challenges, for a great nation, and a nation that's under God, the government is on your shoulders. And so, Lord, we just recognize our need for your help, for your wisdom. Thank you for this council, for this leadership. Lord, that you give them wisdom. Thank you for blessing on the agenda tonight, and give them wisdom as they rule well and serve our community well. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, thank you, sir. Jim, if you would come forward. And if there are any veterans in the room tonight who would like to join Jim at the podium, we'll give you a minute to get there, and then we'll ask Jim to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
There you'd be here. That's why we got to stick together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You all may be seated. I'll remind everyone that Veterans Day is November the 11th. We want to show appreciation to all of our veterans, and I want to thank you all for being here tonight and those of you at home watching. The city will also be closed on Veterans Day. I think that's an important note for folks to know before they plan to show up at City Hall. Okay. Earlier tonight, we recognized Louise Clark, who has been with the city now for 5 years, and we just took a little photo of her, but now I'm going to ask her supervisor to come forward, Sarah Andrews, and present Louise with this certificate of 5 years, and tell us a little bit about Louise. And you can do it at the podium or do it right here with that handheld mic. Come on, Louise. You can't stay back there.
Yes, Janet said I didn't know her real name was Edna. And Louise explained, so we call her Louise, but she explained when she was an auditor, she went by Edna. I was like, that is genius. Sorry. I was recognized last month for my 5 years. So the first thing I did when I got hired was hire Louise. She joined the finance department November of 2015. And so we've kind of grown up in Villa Rica together. And we've worked on a lot of projects. The biggest thing was the purchasing ordinance had just been adopted. So it was Louise's job to kind of get that in place. The practices that were being done previously were kind of null and void at that point. So she's done a great job training the departments and things to the new standard. But I thought I was organized. This woman is beyond organized. There is color coding with folders, and she is on top of it. Tom has the red folder, and so when it shows up in his office, he knows Louise is looking for him. So, she has helped make the department what it is. I'm thankful for you. You've been a trustworthy friend to me, and look forward to more time in the finance department with you. Yes. So,
All right, thank you, Louise. In the words of the chief, would you like to say anything? Okay. I'm going to try to do better at that. The chief always wants to say something. Okay, and we do have another presentation tonight. We are going to have, are they here? We're going to have a presentation for the Transportation Master Plan. It will be presented by Richard Fangman, and I'll ask Bobby to introduce him and tell us a little bit about this.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor and Council approved the RFP for the Transportation Master Plan on September 10th, 2019. Since then, our consultant, Pond & Company, has been counting cars and analyzing crash data and everything else associated with it. But for the public's benefit, I'm going to plagiarize a little bit from your draft plan. The purpose of the plan: with the growth Villa Rica has experienced recently and over the last several years, there are new needs and challenges to serve residents and businesses. This growth has put a strain on existing roadways with new traffic traveling throughout the community and to and from other regional destinations. This plan is intended to perform a review of transportation conditions and concerns in Villa Rica, to identify potential solutions to these challenges, and to prioritize these projects by need and by implementation difficulty. This plan should aid decision makers as they choose which projects to pursue and when, and to coordinate with adjoining and overlapping organizations to ensure an effective transportation system. With that, I'd like to introduce Richard Fangman. He is our Pond & Company project manager on this Transportation Master Plan. And I think he's got like a 10-minute presentation. Richard Fangman.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. It's a pleasure to be here, and it was a pleasure to work with Bobby and the staff and with the community. We really enjoyed that, and hopefully we were able to produce something that'll be a good quality for you and good value for you as you move forward. So I was going to give a quick overview of what we had found.
Absolutely. Welcome. Go ahead.
Okay, so I guess what we worked on what was called a transportation master plan. What does that transportation master plan include? It included a look at analysis and data that was collected throughout the city, as well as data that was existing for traffic flow and crashes. We looked at previous plans, and we did a lot of community engagement. And that community engagement included in-person public meetings, but also a lot of online engagement that we got a lot of input from the community on. So one of the things we looked at closely was safety, and we looked at, and this is kind of a heat map that shows where crashes occur in the city, and you can see some concentrations on some of your major corridors in the city. That was one of the inputs to the plan. Another thing we looked at was we looked at traffic volumes at a lot of intersections. We also looked at traffic patterns, and this is some data from the U.S. Census that talks about where people from travel to go to work in Villa Rica. And so you can see people are traveling from all around, but primarily from the east, the southwest, and the northeast into Villa Rica to access the jobs that are here. And then you have a little further commuting away from Villa Rica from your residents and where they work. We've got a lot of residents that live and work in Villa Rica, but some still going to Carrollton and up to the northeast, but a lot going to the east, and some going as far as the 25 to 50 miles. 22% of your folks commuting out of the community are going a long distance, so that was interesting. So that connectivity to and from the freeway, is important for those commuters. But it's also important to make sure we're moving traffic around Villa Rica without traffic congestion, and so that was one thing that we looked at closely, was all the intersections and areas. This just kind of shows some of the observed congestion. We also performed a lot of analysis of those congestions and how the intersections would work. Another thing we got that was really important, especially with the COVID, it was a little bit limited in how much interaction we could have through the spring with people coming out to events. But we did get a lot of interaction through the online survey that was taken with these, through what they call the social pinpoint exercise. And so people could talk about where there was congestion, where they had problems, and those were addressed and looked at in more detail in the study. Another thing we did was we looked at what are some goals, and so we brought a lot of goals to the stakeholders early on. We used that to kind of refine our list to some things that we thought would be focal points for how we look at what we're serving. Improving north-south travel was one of the things that was one of the highest ranked goals by everyone there. And also we heard a lot about developing freight corridors and making sure that we're moving the freight places that you want to have it and not have it in places that you don't want it. So, we looked at a lot of, so recommendations included roadway and intersection recommendations and safety recommendations. This is just kind of an overview of some of the ones that are on the western side of Villa Rica, and I'm not going to read through all the bullet items, but some focal points there was enhancing the State Route 61 Industrial Boulevard corridor for capacity, so trying to provide that capacity on the west end, connecting Industrial Boulevard and State Route 101 and State Route 61, and that's really the project that's about to go into construction in a couple years with the Georgia DOT to do your northern bypass. That was something that was already on the books, but certainly a key part of what you want to do moving forward. Improving critical intersections west of State Route 61. So there are several intersection improvements that we identified. They're not just on 61, but are on some of those locations to the west. Looking at the eastern section of Villa Rica, enhancing the Liberty Road interchange capacity is one of the key items there. It's a little congested now, but it's going to be even more congested in the future. And so we had some very specific intersection improvements and improvements, kind of north and south on Villa Rica, or on Liberty Road. Another one is enhancing the connection between Liberty Road and US 78. That's one we hear a lot about, particularly as people come up on the Muir Lake Boulevard connector and try to turn left out. So we looked at how doing improvements along Connors Road and up and around could help facilitate some of that movement and have a stepwise approach to some improvements to trying to make that connection work a lot better. Also enhancing safety and connectivity. And one was a Punkintown Road in downtown. So we know you're going to be doing your Livable Centers Initiative project down here in downtown. That's going to be looking a lot at some focused pedestrian safety things in the context of your downtown redevelopment. Also, another key area is that Punkintown Road corridor, and that's one that was identified as really in need of a safety improvement project to try to make sure that we're handling things that may be cars that make them less likely to go off the road or have other issues along that road. Another thing that was really important when we talked about connectivity was that shoreline connector. When we started looking at our models and things that could be done, the shoreline, I guess it's called the shoreline connector from Muir Lake Boulevard to downtown. That's really an important connection that could be made in the city, we found. And also improving safety and operations at key intersections. So that goes without saying, we did look at a lot of intersections in this study. And so that's kind of a brief overview. Again, we also reflected a lot of things from the bicycle and pedestrian from your Silver Nugget plan in there and did some prioritization of those so that you could see what it looked like when we prioritized those based on some rating schemes that we had in here. We did look, as we prioritized, at 3 different things: technical analysis, how it met the community goals, and what input we received from the community. And I'm not going to go over everything in this map, but what this map shows, and it's within the study, is showing what are projects that are the highest priority projects, mid-priority projects, and some of the lower priority projects based on a rating scheme that looked at how it met those 3 goals. Did it provide good technically? Did it provide support for your goals and objectives? And what was the community input on that? We also called out projects that are GDOT projects that they're moving forward independently of the city. In addition, there are projects that would be projects that are on state routes where so just because it's not shown in blue as a GDOT project doesn't mean you can't get state funding for it. There are plenty of other projects along state routes that would be subject to that, and we discussed that in the plan. But that's just a very brief overview, and I know there's a lot in the document, so be happy to answer any questions you have here tonight or in the future as you review.
Well, let me ask you first, thank you for that presentation. I know, and you all have seen it all around town, they have out the strips, and that's how you were doing traffic counts, right? What impact do you think the COVID timeframe during the spring and into the summer had on your ability to get counts, and do you think that it had a substantial impact, considering, I guess, the flows would have been about the same, just lower volumes?
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Well, no, I will. Actually, the counts we took, we were in before the COVID on the counts. We actually took those last fall.
Okay,
So those
good.
counts were including that data. We have kind of looked at some of the count stations around, and it looked like the traffic in a lot of places is down anywhere from 20 to 30%. Other times counts, volumes have changed from being very peak oriented to spreading out, through the day.
Okay.
So we've kind of looked at that, but it was not what drove the analysis we had.
Okay, and then you talked about the survey, which I did the survey. Did you have a healthy response on that? Talk about what you would have expected and what you actually was able to achieve in terms of response on the survey, if you have that information.
Yeah, sure, and I'm trying to remember the exact numbers we had on the survey. I know we got a lot of input on the initial survey, which in many cases is sort of the more important of because the second survey was really just, giving us comments on the draft report. We had fewer comments on the draft report from the survey, but we had over 200 comments on the initial survey, telling us all these different locations where there were problems.
So then that allowed
Felt
you
like
to
that
then,
was a pretty good,
to then follow up on those locations if
yes, to
if you
follow
needed
up
more
on those
information on it. I
and look
understand.
for more information.
I would just also say that I bet you that nugget is not silver. I bet you it's gold. You
Did I
mentioned
say the silver nugget? Oh my gosh. I apologize to you all. Golly, hopefully
That's
that's the
okay.
worst mistake I made tonight,
That's
but
okay.
I do apologize for that.
Let me
Gold nugget.
see if any of the council members have any questions. All right, Ms. McPherson.
Yeah, probably more of a comment, because I think all of us, sorry, there we go. I think all of us agree there's some issues with the Punkintown Road and what we want to do to improve safety. I know at least one other councilman, besides myself, were a little concerned about the recommendation for the speed on there, thinking it was still too high at 40 miles per hour in that area. I don't know if Councilman Young wants to add any input into that.
Well, are you? Did
That-
you have, okay.
Yeah, I just wanted
Mr.
to
Young?
recognize that.
Yeah, I'm especially interested in what we plan to do with Punkintown Road. I got the subsequent report on that, and I'll be talking with Bobby Elliott about that, but that's one of my hot buttons.
Okay.
So
And
is
we
there
can
anything-
dig into the technical aspects of that if you all want to. It hasn't moved forward to Georgia DOT yet. From what I understand, it's still being reviewed by the city, and we can talk about some of that. What that was is to reduce the speed there. Trying to look at that, and we found the speeds to be a good bit higher than the posted speed limit, which is one of the reasons we recommended the speed. That
Yeah,
was
it
on
didn't
there.
take a study to do that, though. We knew that those speeds were too
Yeah,
high.
that's right. Yes, yeah, I know. And that's
Well, the
why
actual
study was-
speeds, I mean,
yeah,
the
yeah,
limit,
actual
we're
speeds.
working on that, but
Yes,
the folks
yes.
down that road they're not doing the speed limit. Bobby, did you want to talk on that just for a minute?
That additional study has been submitted, did you not? I have not heard back from them yet.
Okay. Well, that is of particular interest to a number of members on the council and certainly to the public, so obviously get that out to us as soon as
And
you can.
Mayor-
All right. Yes,
Mayor,
ma'am.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say, I really appreciate that we're doing this, so the effort you're putting in, the citizens that have participated. I think this traffic study is really, really important for the city, so I appreciate your presentation and just that we're getting this done.
All right.
Thank you.
We appreciate the opportunity to work.
Does anyone else wish to,
I just had
Mr.
a
Montahan?
question. Was there anything in the study or in the plan about improving, I don't know, local roads or minor collectors as a way to relieve tension on the arterials and other like larger roads? For example, tonight we have and I believe we have a proposal to extend a road related to a commercial project. And I just wanted to know, and also in that area, there's also some other roads that are closed off and that, it seems to me, just from, my kind of layman view, that it would, if those roads were opened, it would create more traffic in those immediate areas, but it would probably relieve traffic off intersections down the street or on other areas. I didn't know if the plan or the study addressed anything like that.
We looked at where the pinch points were in the city, and we tried to look at what could be done to affect those pinch points. And in some cases, it was other improvements. I think the main sort of new road we looked at and tried to look at what the volume would be was that Shoreline Connector Road.
Right.
Versus trying to open up, small local roads. I think that there's, you can always get, if you have some more of those road connections, it always helps. But you also have to, if you just open one or two, you're not necessarily getting yourself to like a full grid system like you would
Right,
have.
yeah.
So there's sort of that quantum leap where if you don't have as much connectivity as through a certain area, and you only open up one or two, you may get more traffic on there, which could be good or could be bad depending on what's along that road.
Right.
To get the full benefit and get a real grid system, you guys are probably a ways away from
Okay.
that. But we did try to look at what could be done, at those intersections. And certainly,
Okay.
if there's some specific roads like that, something that you would like us to comment on more, we'd be happy to, get with Bobby and get with you if,
Okay.
there's anything you'd like us to look at.
Okay, thank you.
All right, hold on a second. Any other council members have any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Fangman. Thank you for being here tonight, and we look forward to working with you. Okay. We will move on in the agenda now. We will move to the adoption of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Mr. Carter?
Do we want to amend the consent agenda at this time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, item A7 needs to be removed from the consent agenda. And we decided to add it as B2.
So we're going to take item A7 from the consent agenda on page 1 of tonight's agenda, and we are going to make that same item B2. And so Nick, did I see Nick in the room? Okay, that's okay. It's okay. I think we can handle it.
Yeah, not a problem.
All right, and are there any other changes? If there are no other changes, I will entertain a motion to adopt the amended agenda.
Move to adopt the amended agenda.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to adopt the amended agenda and a second. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous, and we will now move forward in the amended agenda. Okay, next item up is public comments. Give me just a moment. I'm going to recognize first Clint Chance, member of our Carroll County Board of Commissioners. Mr. Chance, would you like to say anything tonight? Anybody who knows Clint knows he doesn't really turn down an opportunity to say anything. But the good thing is he usually has something good to add, so let's give him a minute.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here and being recognized. I did want to let the community know that there's going to be a county-wide SPLOST that's going to be coming up for renewal in March of 2021. And people that have been following the news, it's no secret that a new fire station is what I am proposing at the county level to have here in the city of Villa Rica. We're going to start after the first of the year doing some heavy marketing, probably having some town hall meetings, working with the city and mayor and administration to see how you would like for us to go about doing that. So we're going to be really hitting it hard after the first of the year, but we want to educate the community, let everybody know what SPLOST dollars have been spent in the past, what our projections are for the future, and what those allocations will be for the different municipalities as well, not just for the county allocation. So that's probably the big next step that's coming up, that the county is working with the city.
All right, well, thank you, Clint. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for updating us on that, on the SPLOST. We have been working on that behind the scenes. A number of initiatives have moved forward from the city to the county, and that will be, as Clint talked about, it'll be publicized a little bit more, well, actually a lot more here pretty soon, but probably right after the first of the year as we prepare for that SPLOST vote in March. All right, so now let's move on to public comments, and I do have a few folks who have signed up. Let me just read this disclaimer right up front. Please keep your comments on a professional level. We will not accept comments that are considered by the chair to be of a personal attack on any individual or group of individuals. If you deviate from this protocol, you'll be asked to leave. Only one person speak at a time, and please respect the individual's time when they are speaking. Our first taker tonight is Chrissy Watson. Ma'am, if you would come up to the podium here, we're going to give you 3 minutes. I'm going to ask you to give us your name and address just for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Pull that mic down a little bit.
Chrissy Watson, 201 Dallas Highway, and I'm here in the city. My question is regarding the Punkintown Road open house, and if there's going to be any more information given to us about that, or if that was supposed to be input towards what the presentation was tonight. And I guess I wanted to make the comment that I found it kind of inconsiderate that it was still held when 75% of the area did not have electricity, nor ways to find out that it wasn't going to be held. So I just wanted to express that, and then to ask if there is a way to give input for that.
Okay. So I don't think I've seen you here before, so I'll just, as a courtesy, let you know that we don't really engage back and forth. This is
Okay.
your time to speak. But what I will say is that Bobby Elliott, right back there with that green shirt on, can give you his card,
Okay.
and he is the guy to talk to about that, and we'll get you whatever information you need, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Our next taker is Miss Janet Heilman. Is she here? Janet, if you'll come up to the podium, please state your name and address for the record, and we will give you 3 minutes.
Hi, Janet Heilman, 44 Maple Valley Drive. I realize that this issue that I'm going to discuss and that I'm going to comment on has been tabled, but I want to express that I do not support the city paying for college reimbursement for the employees. During the past year, because of COVID, many people have lost their jobs and many are struggling just to pay their basic bills. I don't feel it's an appropriate time to give away free benefits, especially when the burden of these costs fall on the taxpayers. And also in light of the fact that we've had a tax increase for the citizens of Villa Rica that was passed, just a little while ago. I think that, the city has a budget line for $175,000 for job-specific training and traveling, covering city departments and volunteer boards. And I think that's important, and I think that's relative. But I think it's really unfair that we have a reimbursement program that, to me, is kind of discriminatory because it only benefits some of the people, not all the people. You have people that have already finished their college education, they're still paying off their loans or struggling to pay off their loans. And another problem would be as far as a 2-year stay agreement, I don't see how that can be imposed on an employee. If they get a job offer in another city at a better wage, it would be to their benefit to take that job and to try to, I don't see how that could not result in a litigious situation for the city if the city doesn't allow the employee to leave. And if the employee is forced to stay, then you basically have a disgruntled employee. And it's not as if we can force an employee to pay the money back for college tuition through a garnishment or anything. One career builder survey cited that employers expect 45% of their newly hired college grads would remain for a company under 2 years, and I realize that this is city employment, but I think tuition is more appropriate for public companies, but with the city, it talks about that 25% of young employees would have worked 5 jobs, and as the older generation of city employees retire, a bulk of the new employees will be millennials, and I think that the concept of an employee working their way up the ladder and staying with the company for decades is just kind of a concept of the past. So in summary, I don't agree with putting that as a line item in the budget, and I hope that you would consider that for these reasons. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. And yes, we do intend to take that up next month. So you're welcome to come back. And Michael Adams, he led us in the invocation tonight, and I believe he probably just placed his name on this list. So are there any other folks who did not put their name on this list who would like to speak? Yes, sir. Come forward. Please give us your name and address for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
John Mount, 214 Rockmart Road, Villa Rica, Georgia. I wasn't going to speak until I heard the traffic plan, and I'm a little disappointed that there wasn't more discussion on pedestrian traffic. It's a big issue in the city. We have a lot of areas in the city that does not have a safe pedestrian walkway. The sidewalks are lacking a lot of areas. If you want to go from the Chevrolet dealer to get a cup of coffee at Starbucks, you basically put your life at risk. There's no sidewalks. The state does have a crossing there at the light, but from there you're just kind of out in the open. So I would really like you to consider, and talk to your consultant about adding a, pedestrian portion to that. To me, it's very important to have a walkable city. I travel a lot. When you go to small cities back, on the East Coast or anywhere, that's what draws you to the town. There's people out walking everywhere, and it just looked like a really busy location. There's lots of restaurants you can walk to, and I think it just makes it much more enjoyable to live there if you can just walk to where you need to go. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? Come forward. Please state your name and address for the record. And,
Jody Mount, 214 Rockmart Road, and I just want to follow up on two of the other comments. I'm in agreement with the having the public comment or the meeting on Punkentown Road when most of us were without power and didn't know they were having that meeting. I mean, that was just wrong. And it's my understanding, because I asked about it, that there wasn't much of a turnout there, which is hello and a big surprise. And also, I agree with my husband on the pedestrian. I mean, I would love to be able to walk to the library. I did that once. And yes, I'm here alive, but it's a miracle. That was dangerous. That was extremely dangerous. And to not have your public library accessible by pedestrians or bicyclists is absolutely ridiculous. Thank you.
all right, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else, I will close the public comment portion of our meeting. And let's move on to the time frame set aside for the council members. Does anyone wish to be recognized? Yes, ma'am. Ms. McPherson.
In honor of Veterans Day, I'd like to use my council update time to recognize that. Go Army, Jim. My brother represents the Marine side of the family, but my father, World War II, my husband, and also two of my children. And I'm keep this within about 3 minutes. I'm gonna read just a short little story, and it's titled, "It Was This Faith That Maintained Our Hope." You will write a letter to American pilots flying missions in the South. You will tell them it's wrong and they are criminals. You will tell them to protest to their government. With those words, Lieutenant Everett Alvarez's North Vietnamese captors led him into a room, furnished with a wood table, a stick pen, a bottle of ink, and blank paper. It was November 5th, 1966. For the next several days, his jailers deprived him of sleep, kicked him, and withheld food in an effort to get him to write a confession. The ordeal was one of many Alvarez faced during his long captivity. On August 5th, 1964, while flying a mission against enemy torpedo boats, Alvarez had become the first American pilot shot down over North Vietnam. He soon found himself in the infamous prison known as the Hanoi Hilton. His starvation diet consisted of a chicken head floating in slimy stew, an animal hoof, or a blackbird lying feet up on a plate. Monstrous rats scurried across his tiny cell. More POWs arrived. The North Vietnamese often beat them, tied them up for days, or ratcheted handcuffs around their arms until it felt like hacksaws biting into their flesh. Not all survived. Often held in isolation, the captives communicated by tapping codes on the wall. Contact with one another was essential. Alvarez wrote in his book, Chained Eagle, "Without it, we were doomed." At the sound of prearranged taps, the POWs stood alone in their cells to whisper the Lord's Prayer in unison, then recite the Pledge of Allegiance with hand over heart. At the war's end, after 8.5 years in the Hanoi Hilton and other prisons, Everett Alvarez came home. Faith in God, in our president, and in our country. It was this faith that maintained our hope, he said. God bless you, Mr. and Mrs. America. You did not forget us. And I just want to recognize for the ones that are here and for anyone on video, thank you to all our veterans, to those that served in this particular war that's referenced in this story. If I may steal a line from my husband, if I may say to you what you did not hear when you came home, and that is, welcome home, Vietnam veterans. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, any other council members wish to be recognized? All right, let me close the, that portion of our meeting, and I will move on to the consent agenda. Okay, I'm going to read off these items, and at the end of this, if you see anything different or if you have any objections to any of these items, I'll entertain that at that time. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the items that I read into the consent agenda. Item number 1, professional consultant contract for the Villa Rica LCI study between the City of Villa Rica and MKSK. Item 2, approval of citywide service agreement to provide HVAC systems with semi-annual inspections and seasonal filters. Item 3, purchase of a 2021 Ford F-250 Crew Cab 4x4 for the Utilities Department. Item 4, approval of replacement and installation of new garage door at the Avanti Building. Item 5, purchase of a 2021 Ford F-250 Crew Cab 4x4 for the Stormwater Department. Item number 6, approval of the purchase of a 2020 Ford Escape for the Parks, Recreation and Leisure Services Department. We will skip the next one, and I'm gonna change the numbers. So this will be item number 7, approval to engage SLR Roofing to install an architectural style shingle roof on Fullerville concession stand. I'm gonna get myself confused. Yeah. All right, item number 8, expand the body-worn camera program by 1 unit and obtain the data transfer station required for compatibility with the latest body camera model. Item 9, equip the 6 newly ordered Patrol Explorers with all necessary emergency equipment. Item 10, equip the 6 newly ordered Patrol Explorers with emergency band 2-way radios. Item 11, equip the 6 newly ordered Patrol Explorers with in-car video camera and body cameras. Item 12, replace 10 previous generation portable radios with current model manufacturer-supported portable 2-way radios. Item number 13, to designate the mayor and council as the redevelopment agency for the city of Villa Rica. And item number 14, the 2021 budget amendments. Number 1 and number 2. So at a meeting last Thursday, the city council met and went over all of these items in much more detail and then created this consent agenda. Are there any objections to the consent agenda? If there are not, I will entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I'll move to adopt the amended consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda and a second. All in favor? That is unanimous. All right, so we have significantly reduced our agenda and moving on to governing body. Council members, you have the minutes from the October 13, 2020 meeting. You have had time to review those. Are there any amendments or changes? If there are none, do I have a motion to adopt the approval of the meeting minutes from October 13, 2020?
Move we adopted minutes from October 13.
I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from October 13, 2020. And I have a second. It's Mr. Carter. All in favor? That's unanimous. All right. Yes, ma'am.
I did abstain only because I was not here.
I'll be corrected, Madam Clerk. Okay, item B2. This is a carryover. This is the, all right, so let me tell everybody what happened here. So on Thursday in the work session, we looked at this particular item, which was the purchase of those cars that we have already voted to equip. But in that purchase, we were considering whether or not we would buy the extended warranties and whether we would buy them now or whether we would exercise the option to buy them before the original warranty expired. What we intended to do was to leave it on the consent agenda exactly as it had been presented at the work session and then make a change if a change was necessary. Well, it turned out that it was modified on the work session agenda for the consent agenda, And so now we are going to revert back to the work session motion, and I'm going to ask Mr. Carter to offer that tonight.
Okay, with the extended warranty, the low bidder, there were two bidders, and the low bidder was still Don Rich for a purchase price of $35,525 per vehicle, 6 vehicles. So I'll move that we authorize the city manager to purchase 6 2021 Ford Explorer Police Interceptors with the extended warranty from Don Rich and the amount not to exceed $213,150.
Okay, so we have the motion that Mr. Carter made. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second, and I'm just going to clarify for purposes, if anybody's confused, what we did was we've decided to purchase the extended warranties up front, okay? And that's what he just read. All right, any further discussion? All right, all in favor? That's unanimous. All right, thank you, Mr. Carter. We will now move on to tab C, Community Development. And I guess Ron Johnson will present. Axis Infrastructure LLC is requesting 5 variances for the property located at 77 Commerce Drive. We did hear this on last Thursday. Tonight, this is set for a public hearing.
It is correct. The staff is actually asking, and at the request of the applicant, to have this item carried or moved to the December 8th meeting. The applicant indicated yesterday afternoon that they found a fiber optic cable that's underneath this lot. So I think there's some more due diligence that they need to do and see how that would change their plans for this oil change facility.
Okay, I understand that. So, council, does anyone have any questions for Ron? If not, I would entertain a motion to table this item to the December the 8th meeting. I have a motion to table this item to the December 8th council meeting, and I have a second. Any discussion? Mr. Montahan.
Do we still have to have a public hearing, though, even though we're tabling it?
If you're going to continue it to a date certain, I don't think you have to have the public hearing tonight. We do need to make sure that the public is aware through this announcement that it will be heard on December 8th and have the public hearing on that date.
So is tonight sufficient to make that announcement?
Yes.
Okay, so what we have is a motion to table this item to the December the 8th meeting, and that night will also be a public hearing on this item. We have a second, and is there any additional discussion? If not, all in favor? All right, that has been unanimous. All right, item number 2, ZM-01-20, zoning map amendment to rezone 4 lot designations. Ron, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. ZM-01-20 is for 201 Cleghorn Street and Anderson Road. It's a total of 4 lots for those addresses, and the city is the applicant tonight, and we're looking to rezone from MF1, which is a low-density multifamily zone, to a multifamily medium-density zone. The parcels, just for the record, the 3 city-owned parcels here that we're requesting this rezoning for is V0501300013, V0501800028, and V0501800029. And there's one privately held lot as well, which is parcel V0501300014. So the purpose of this rezoning is for the potential for a multifamily apartment complex of some form in the future. This is a preliminary action. There has been no applications as of tonight for any apartment complexes or anything of the matter. This was zoned as R14 under the UDC. And in August 11th of this year, as we know, this was rezoned to MF1. So as we talked about in the work session last week, we were only doing lateral changes, or we tried to keep it to lateral changes only with changing zoning. And during that zoning map update and zoning ordinance, the new zoning ordinance, and these 4 parcels would actually be the only 4 parcels in the city that would be zoned this way.
All right, we did briefly review this item on Thursday. However, council, does anyone have any questions? Mr. Young?
These 4 properties are in the newly created tax allocation district, correct?
Well, the tax allocation district hasn't been created yet at all. So it's, as of right now, there's no tax allocation district there.
The question is anticipated, I think.
Yeah,
Which means, is it the anticipated
yes,
area?
Correct, yes, anticipated.
All right. Any other questions? Anybody else? All right, seeing no,
One question, I'm sorry, Mayor.
oh, go ahead, Mr. Montan.
I'm sorry. I don't recall, I understand there was 4 lots, but my understanding was that all 4 lots were owned by the city.
It's not. Parcel, let's see. I'm going to grab my parcel map here. So the westernmost parcel, which ends in 0014, is actually owned by a private company.
Okay. And I think I'm familiar with that because working with DDA and everything. But my question is, and I understand this is a city-initiated zoning, but I mean, do we have some sort of consent from that private property owner? I mean, I understand it's part of the larger deal, and I'm sure they would have, but do we have anything in writing?
Via email, we do. We have a request from him to have this rezoned.
Okay. I mean, and I understand this is all part of the larger deal, working with DDA and everything, but you know, something like that, I think a property owner's consent would be something that should be in the packet. Just, you know, and I understand everybody knows what's going on here, but, you know, 6 months down the road or a year down the road, new staff, new council, who knows what happens. That's not really evident here. And then also, just as a good practice, I think, you know, an entirely different project elsewhere in the city, I think that, you know, especially after what we just went through when we went through all those zoning appeals and everything, I just think going forward, that's something. But I'll take the staff's word for it that it exists, so.
Well, so, you know, and to that point, I think he's exactly spot on, because one of the things that we do and what we've recently done with those appeals is we gave property owners the opportunity to have a say in what we were doing with their zoning. And here you may well have permission, I'm assuming that the city attorney is familiar with this, but there is nothing in the packet that shows that. So I would like to see that. I think that he is absolutely correct on that. So in the future, if we are affecting a private property owner, I would like to see where their consent is within the information that comes to us. All right, does anybody else have any questions? All right, seeing none, do we need to have a public hearing on this, David?
You do.
Okay.
Yes.
So what I'll do now is I'm going to open this up for a public hearing, and I'm going to ask that anyone who wants to speak for or against this item to come forward now. All right, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. I'm going to revert back to council for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning of the aforementioned parcels from multifamily low-density MF1 to multifamily medium-density MF2.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Carter and a second by Ms. McPherson. I don't have the motion before me, so I won't read it again. Is there any additional discussion? If not, all in favor? All right, that is unanimous. All
Okay,
right.
there's a part 2 to
There should
this.
be a second, yes.
It
Where's
would
it
have
at?
been interesting had we denied our own request.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, the part 2 of this is I make a motion to approve and adopt the new official zoning map for the city of Villa Rica, inclusive of all changes outlined by the staff.
All right, so I have a second motion and a second from Ms. McPherson. You got that? All right, any additional discussion on that? All right, all in favor? That will also be unanimous. Is there anything else on that paper?
Nope, that's
Nope.
it.
That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. That's what happens when my computer is not bringing up my packet. All right, now we're going to move on to human resources. And we have tabled this item. No. I'm going to entertain a motion to table this item to the December the 8th meeting by one of the council members.
I move the table this item to December 8th.
Have a motion to table personnel policies update to December the 8th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. We'll move that item to December the 8th, Madam Clerk. All right, next item up, E, Finance. Ms. Sarah Andrews, this is Banking Services. Council, I'll remind you that we reviewed this on Thursday. We did not place it on the consent agenda for one reason, and that is because we have someone who will abstain here in a few minutes. So I'm going to ask if anybody is prepared to make a motion without taking up any more time.
I make a motion to approve the city's banking service, moving the city's banking services from Bank OZK to Synovus Bank.
Second.
All right, I have a motion, and I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? All abstain? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Moving right along, Mr. City Manager, F1, we will hear a little bit about, and I guess it's Mr. Mecklin. Adoption of the pilot, which is the payment in lieu of taxes agreement related to Walton Communities Project with Villarica Housing Authority. On last Thursday, we had some discussion about this. We had a number of questions that we asked you to go back to the Housing Authority with and their attorneys. And now I'll ask you to present this item and we'll see where we're at.
All right, Mr. Mayor, council members, we did talk about this. As you understand, the city has had a pilot agreement in place with the Housing Authority for some time whereby they pay the city for municipal services rendered in the housing projects in the city of Villarica. This is essentially an amendment or a new pilot agreement for the new project that Walton Communities is going to be involved with, the Housing Authority. I don't have any new information beyond what we had on last Thursday. I have reached out to the folks at Walton Communities, telling them that I believe that the city did have some questions and were interested in getting some additional information concerning the plan, but I have not received any of that at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mecklin. That being the case, I am going to suggest, give me just a minute. I'm going to suggest that here in a moment, council have opportunity to ask you some questions if you're able to follow up on maybe something that we haven't asked or we need to clarify now.
Sure.
But it's going to be my inclination to then consider tabling this to December the 8th. But does any council members have any questions? Mr. Young.
David, in the cooperation agreement, the current cooperation agreement that you provided, in paragraph 1B and 2C, it talks about the taxing authority, taxing body. And it's an organization which has the authority to assess and levy real and property taxes or to certify such taxes to a taxing body, which in my mind would be the county, the city, and the schools. So
That's right.
Does the Public Housing Authority pay payments in lieu of taxes to all three of those organizations?
My understanding is the answer to that question is no, that they don't, that they pay it to the city, and that the city is then charged with distributing it to any of the other taxing agencies. I don't know whether or not we have done that in the past, but that's the way the system is supposed to work, is that we receive the funds in and distribute it to any of the taxing agencies.
So I'm looking at Sarah, and she's shaking her head no. And I appreciate that because I would be concerned that we talked about these numbers last Thursday and no one said, oh, by the way, we then take some of that money and pay it back out to some other taxing authority.
Yeah.
I think that's a good question, and I think we would like to get some more answers on that.
And
Mr.
it
Young,
is a question that I have asked and not had answered.
well, that's among several, right? Mr. Young, do you have anything else? All right, anybody else wish? Ms. McPherson?
Well, I was just going to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know the city manager was interested in maybe that tax amount being connected percentage-wise. Based on what I'm seeing here, it's the same original plan we got, which is a fee that goes back to what year?
1950.
1950. Now, okay, so they don't have to pay taxes, because it's federal property?
It is
Or
protected
it's
under federal statute, yes.
Okay, and for the public housing, and I love what's gonna happen over there. It's wonderful. But there's something wrong with that number, from 1950, with a fee for us supplying the city services that we do to the property. So I think the tabling makes a lot of sense, because we don't have answers on a number of these.
Right, and let me say, I'm gonna reiterate again tonight that we are interested in a good relationship with Walton Communities. We are interested in a good relationship with the Housing Authority. Our concern is not even with the pilot agreement in terms of the amounts. We understand what the parameters are, and we understand that they don't have any real obligation there. But what we are concerned with is how are we obligating the city? And to what extent and for how long? And those are real questions that I think that we must have answers to before we sign off on this. That being the case, I would entertain a motion to table this item to the December the 8th meeting.
So move.
I have a motion to table the item to December 8th,
Second.
and I have a second. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. Madam Clerk, you got it. All right, Mr. City Manager, you've been sitting quietly. Submission of the redevelopment plan from the redevelopment agency to the city of Villa Rica, and I believe this stuff showed up in our box just a few days ago. Go ahead.
So we have a redevelopment plan for the Mirror Lake Connector TAD. As I understand the process, we had to designate a redevelopment agency, which you did earlier tonight. You made yourself the redevelopment agency. The next step is for you as the redevelopment agency to formally submit the redevelopment plan to the mayor and city council for their consideration. And as I understand it, it does not require a vote, just that you acknowledge that as the agency, you're submitting that plan for review.
Is that is there a motion on the cover sheet?
There's no motion.
Okay.
No.
David, would you craft one for me?
Well, from what Tom just said, we really don't need a motion, and
Even to submit it, we don't?
Second of all, this is not a meeting of the redevelopment agency.
Okay.
Which would be what the motion is coming from, so we may
Okay.
want to schedule a meeting of the redevelopment agency to recommend this to the city council, but you would not do it at a city council meeting.
Like, we could do that at the beginning of December 8, like we would with the public facilities
Yeah.
authority.
So, all right, well then let me clarify, or let me get it clear in my head. So the recommendation is from the agency to the city council, not the
Correct.
city council back to the agency. Okay, so we need to set a meeting for the redevelopment agency for December the 8th. Does that
Yes.
sound what you'd like to do?
Yes, unless we have some other meeting prior to that time. I
Can we
mean,
just
I
put
don't-
that on the agenda? Well,
It'd be a separate agenda,
need
just
to-
like we do public
so do we need to,
facilities.
we need to vote on setting that meeting?
I think she just sets it up and,
Well, we can't because we're the
advertises it.
city council. So, okay,
No, we're just
gonna set it.
just set it up.
we just set the meeting.
Just set it up.
at least we'll take care of it.
Okay, all right. That was clear as mud, and I think we're good, though. I think we're good, though.
Enjoy the reading.
Yep. Okay. We have now moved on to the city manager's report. Do you have one, Tom?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead.
As you might expect, at this time of year, building permits are falling. We have, compared to the rest of my time here, relatively few available developable lots in the city. Most of the neighborhoods that failed during the 2008 crash have either been developed fully, or the portion that is undeveloped includes unplatted, undeveloped land. So what we are seeing now is a change, I believe, in the mindset of the developer. So if you think about what we've been building, primarily we have built a significant percentage of starter homes in my time here. And those houses were built on lots that were developed more than 10 years ago, and which were, relatively speaking, inexpensive to the builder. But now there is a segment of the builder community that wants to continue to build properties at that same price point. But they realize that if they go into land that is undeveloped, that using today's development figures, they're not going to be able to build that and price that same house as they've done the last 2 years or 3 years. So what we are seeing is an influx of potential townhome developments, some for ownership and some for rental, some a lower end product, one especially high rental product. But what I understand from the development community is this is an attempt to continue to put on the market a product that is similar to what's been selling here for the last couple of years in several of the neighborhoods that we've watched develop. In addition to that, we also see an effort to develop some of these second and third phases of neighborhoods whose names you know, where there was no work done except just the identification of the land as part of the neighborhood. So Charleston Place Phase 3, for instance, Twin Oaks Phase 2, multiple neighborhoods in Mirror Lake, and I can't keep up with which ones 1 and 2 and 3 and all that, but like Northwoods has got something, Water Mist has got something, South Harbor's got something, Fairway 16 and 17 have something. You got the idea. I mean, there's land out there to be developed. Those are going to be really expensive lots. The land is going to cost more. The development's going to be significant. But a lot of those houses are going to be, you know, not just 200 plus, but potentially 300,000 or 400,000 plus. So that's what's going on. That's been a fairly recent development that Bobby and I are trying to keep tabs on. One project that has completed since we spoke is we went into the industrial park in preparation for repaving and embarked on a little project to replace all the culverts that ran under the road. So that job has been done. This is similar in the mindset that we've had about going in and replacing the water service lines before we pave, so that we don't go back and cut the road open after we pave it. So we've gotten that work done. I think there were 6 places where streams crossed under the road that we've replaced. We've talked a little bit about the redevelopment plan. You're aware of that. You've seen the traffic study with Pond. We have an Edge Road water line extension project that's going on. If you're not Mr. Carter, you might not have driven that, but there's a road project there, a water project along the north side of the road. We are continuing to work in preparation of the next one, which is the Highway 78 water line that'll run from roughly the Dairy Queen down to Rite Aid. We've gotten 4 of the 5 easements that we need, so we're making progress there. You've seen the LCI contract come through now. You haven't really asked, but I think it's worth noting that we did not bring you a recommendation for Wood to do that work. And I think you should understand the significance of that, because what we have said as we've done this is we want Wood to continue to work with us as we do the Mirror Lake Connector and as we continue to do the Gold Dust Master Plan implementation. But we wanted a new set of eyes to come in and work with Chris on downtown. And then we're going to blend that. So we're going to take the Mirror Lake Connector plan, we're going to take the Gold Nugget Trail plan, and the LCI and whatever else, you know, we have from the past, comp plans and RSVPs and all that, and try to meld all that into something so that as we have funds, we impact downtown. We have issued the RFQ for the splash pad, which means that in a perfect world, where we obviously don't live, but perfect weather, perfect cooperation by COVID and all things related to COVID, we could have a splash pad next summer in operation. We'll see. We'll be bringing that to you for your consideration in the early winter. Avamore continues to percolate along. I met with the engineer who is working on phase 1 of that plan, which is significantly the front commercial senior living piece. Bobby is working with Baldwin, who is doing the paving project for this year. That was a $2 million award, which is twice what we did 2 years ago. But they are going to have to split that because of weather. And the way that they're doing it is a split team. So they have one team that's doing the milling, which is grinding the road down and putting in binder. And then another team that comes back and puts top coat on. So we've done Liberty Point. We've worked out on the Liberty Pool Road area. We're doing Coach Best neighborhood right now. And everything has gone well except for the Liberty Pool area. And what happened there was when we ground the asphalt down, we got mush. And so we are not going to top coat that, and we're going to wait and see if that dries or if there is a temporary or permanent water issue there. But we may have to go back and do full depth reclamation on on 2 of the streets in the Liberty Pool neighborhood area. That was not anticipated. Another thing that I wanted to mention after we listened to Richard talk about the traffic study is there is no funding for any of that. None. So whatever we implement out of that is going to come from money that's going to be identified in the future. The only part of it that I can see readily would be Punkintown Road being paid for out of the next SPLOST, assuming that it passes. The fact that we did not pass the T-SPLOST really hurts us now, because as you see from that plan, there are many, many opportunities to improve our road system. And that's before we get to the pedestrian considerations that were raised in public comment. We are working on the relocation of Public Works out of the Avante building to the West Plant. We had a pre-construction meeting with the vendor that you approved to do the excavation. And what we've decided to do, we were going to excavate all that bad soil and whatever else happens to be in the ground over there, and then buy fill and put it back in there. But what we've realized is that we have so much excess milling from the road project that we're going to use that instead. So the base of that building is going to be pretty much like a rock, which will work to our advantage. Another project that has come up, you heard Tracy talk about the 100-mile challenge. Well, somebody in the public said, hey, if you really want us to do this, then you need to go out and mark some install mileage markers on some of your trails and sidewalks so that it's practical for us, to go out there and keep up with what we're doing. So you're going to see something come back from that. There's obviously easy places to do that, like the trail around Goldust Park, right? We could put mileage markers out there, but some other places maybe not as easy that we're working on. We're also about 6 months into an effort to try to figure out what in the world we do with the 2 ball fields at Powell Park. Hadn't really talked about that here, but our minimum field size is way, way greater than either of those ball fields. I think the little field there is only 125 feet deep, and the other one's about 165, which is, nowhere close to what we would play our youngest guys ball on. So we're working on that, so expect something back out of that. We're trying to be creative and do something that fits the neighborhood and fits the facility. We're also making some efforts to use the V-Plex better, so we made a lot of improvements out there last winter. There's a lot of things we're going to do out there this winter. We don't talk a lot about the winter project list, but that's a thing here. This may be the 3rd year, but our grounds crew works roughly March to October. And then in November and December, they switch from grass to leaf pickup, which leaves January and February really without them having a task. And so what we've done for the last 2 winters and what we'll do this winter is we work this list of painting and replacing things and tearing stuff down and building it back and whatever. And so V-Plex has been sort of the focal point of that in the first couple of iterations. So if you haven't been out there, Civic Center's gotten a facelift, but we've replaced scorekeeper stands and painted foul poles and upgraded bathrooms and done all kinds of stuff. Another project that's going on that Pete's involved in is the Connors Road Highway 78 roundabout. So if you've been on 78 at Connors, you've noticed that East-West Express is in the midst of their construction. And as a safety project, GDOT has initiated the construction of a roundabout at the crossover of the railroad at Connors and 78. We have utilities in the way, right? Just like we did at 61 in Punkintown where we had to do relocation. So we're going to be bringing some relocation to you for that in order for that to be built. The tree cleanup appears to me to be done. The guys worked really hard that Thursday night and Friday to get the streets cleared. Georgia Power, I think, was still maybe even working into the weekend or Monday, pulling lines out of trees and stuff that were still on the ground. But I think we're in pretty good shape. The bad news is I've got 3 guys out now with COVID out of that group. One thing that I've noticed, and we haven't talked about this much either, is although we've had a number of people that have gone home and have tested positive and whatever, we've had very light symptoms for the most part, which I'm very thankful for. But we've had a lot, it's sort of just a slow rotation of people that are out now. 1 here, 1 or 2 here, working through the pandemic. Another thing that we've not talked a lot about, and I'll hopefully end with this, maybe one more after this, is what we're going to bring you about sewer. So one of our big issues is we have 32 lift stations. And the question is, what do we do going forward? So what we would like to do is take 2 or 3 lift stations and replace them with a bigger lift station to save money on the operational side and the maintenance side, but it never makes economic sense because you have to put in so much gravity pipe to make that possible that it just the cost of that outweighs the savings. But what we want to do going forward is to bring you an ordinance that will require development to build sewer based on the basin and not the project. So when a new developer comes into an area that doesn't have adequate sewer, we're going to require them to put in one lift station that would handle the drainage area instead of a lift station just for their neighborhood, and then the next guy puts in another one for his neighborhood, the next guy, you got the idea, because that's how we got in the mess we're in today. We're currently working on 4 of those. So going back to this townhome thing or new development, we've got guys that are coming in here now wanting to build either a new neighborhood or a townhome development, and we're saying, hold on, you know, before you do this, you can't just build a lift station for your exclusive needs and size it just for your development, but you got to build a bigger one. It's got to be farther away, and it's got to take this whole drainage basin. So that's coming. All right, and then the last thing is a reminder, and I think y'all know this from a couple of things we've said. Carroll Schools is embarking on some construction in Villa Rica, right? So high school football complex is getting a facelift, pretty significant as I understand. I haven't seen a plan. And I've mentioned to you that this is the last year we get to use the gym. So this is bye-bye gym at the elementary school. So we're getting a 2-story classroom extension, right, at Villa Rica Elementary. So I want you to know that. That'll be coming along in some way, shape, or form, I'm sure. That's it.
Let me, and I know we've talked about this before, I mean, outside of a council meeting, but when you talk about that lift station and it covering the entire basin area, and I'm not gonna get too far into it because I know you're gonna draft an ordinance for that, but I'd be a little bit concerned how we accomplish that when certainly a developer probably wouldn't own enough of the area to be able to do that, but I think we should.
It'd be a joint.
We would definitely have to see that in the ordinance. Okay, that was a pretty good, good
I'd
size
like
report.
to make a statement or ask a question.
Let's go.
Mr. Barber, where you was talking about that, the extra months that was sort of, they didn't have nothing to do. Maybe they could take that time to build the bathroom that they're talking about over on Clegan Street in that park. Thank you.
All right, so that was what I was gonna say. Any council members have any questions for Tom? Ms. McPherson?
If that splash pad happens, we will have a lot of happy families with young children next summer. Over at Powell Park, with the fields and everything there, and I don't know, somebody else may have a different view on this, it almost seems like that was built for a different day and time.
Yep.
When children walked around and moms were at home and they ran over there and played ball and things like that, and there was a swimming pool at one time that got filled in and all. And there's these little narrow roads to go down with limited parking there. I don't see how we continue it like that. I mean, I've thought about that lately, that it doesn't really serve the city well.
The building
I don't
does.
see it anywhere but empty all the time. I mean,
Yeah, the fields get no use, and that's a really substantial concession building that has sat unused for at least double-figure years from what the staff are telling me. Some of them have a hard time remembering when we played there last. And we've got staff that have been here 20 years, so.
so maybe that's a subject that even needs to be more in what we would be in a retreat when we're talking about future things about, do we even hold on to that area? Would it be more valuable?
Well, the Powell Park building, we wear out. Right,
Yeah.
plus we do elections there.
Mhm,
But what we're looking at is pickleball.
Oh, I read
heard some
something
yays
about
in
that
the-
in the city
Yeah,
manager
it
report.
plays on a small court, so,
Yeah.
you know, we're looking for something that fits that little bitty footprint of a field. And to be able to take advantage of the parking. There is a parking lot on the building and down the driveway, so.
So, you're right, that building gets used a lot. I was trying to remember the last time I was at a ball game over there, and I believe it was about 9 years ago. I think it was in 2011. There was some small kids playing there, and I don't remember
Yeah, we
if the city
practiced
was
there.
doing it or if we had loaned that field to someone. But the building does get a lot of use, and yes, there was a pool there years ago, and it had a different use back then. Okay, anyone else have any questions? All right, if there are no additional questions, we have reached the end of the agenda. Mr. Macklin, do you have anything?
I do not.
Tom, you've talked enough. All right, anybody else? I'm just kidding. It's good, all in good fun. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Have a motion to adjourn. I have a second. All in favor?